Hello and welcome to the Republica Unicornia podcast. I'm Kathleen. I'm an indie yarn dyer, a project bag maker, and just like a whole lot of making all the things hot mess. Hello. It's been a month since I recorded last, and this is almost feeling like a recording schedule. I kind of just pop in when I have stuff to say, and I have lots to talk about today. I am also, beneath camera, finishing up a row because I stopped something that I wanted to share with y'all in the middle of a short row, and I can't, so I have to finish it. And I got bored just sitting in here working this row, so I decided to record an intro at the same time. If you are new around here and you expect your internet crafting content to be soothing and calming and grounding, this is probably not the channel for you. There are lots of people who have a lot less hyperactive chihuahua energy than I do. But if you are here for a little bit of a whatever this is, welcome. So I have quite a bit to talk about today. This is not actually on the list, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. We had holes. I'm in my dye studio, which is our garage, and we had some holes in the wall and the ceiling from when we did electrical work on the studio. We moved in 3 years ago and we finally got it professionally patched, and I feel very fancy not having a giant gaping hole in the ceiling of my studio, so that's exciting. So I don't know if that's going to improve acoustics. I don't know. Okay, I'm at the end of my row. We did it, guys. Okay, so I have lots to talk about besides, drywall, which is very exciting. I have a couple of finished objects. And I have a ton of works in progress. It's kind of yarn heavy at the moment, which is not super unusual. I just had a shop update a week ago, and I don't do a lot of sewing usually when I'm in the middle of a shop update season, because it just I use the studio for cutting fabric and stuff, and there is, I just don't have the brain space for it, because sewing, guys, I don't know if y'all know this, sewing is hard. I do it a lot, still hard. So, oh yeah, that just reminds me, if you're not here for completely 12-year-old boy jokes and possibly some mild to moderate swearing again, you might want to find someone who's a little bit more soothing than I am. But the rest of y'all, hello. So I'm going to talk about finished objects, I'm going to talk about yarn, and I'm going to generally talk about plans. I'm holding my plans loosely at the moment. We are moving into springtime, which kind of always, there's a shift in my making practices this time of the year, so we'll see. I don't know. I'm going to start off with finished objects. So a knitting finished object. I talked about this last time, I think. Also is going to clash horribly with what I am wearing. Just prepare your eyeballs. I finished my Linden Button Up vest. This is a pattern by Nori-chan Knits, and I was a test knitter. Not a great one. I'm not great at test knitting. I always forget to take notes because I get really excited about the thing. But I was a test knitter, and I will link my Ravelry project page below. So it's a vest. It's such a great pattern, and I'm going to talk about why it's such a great pattern. It is sized from a 30¼ inch bust to a 62¼ inch bust. And I made mine with 2 inches of positive ease, which I actually really liked on me. I don't think I made any other size. Oh, I know the size modification I made is I made the armhole depth a little bit shallower. I have trouble fitting vests. I've talked about this ad nauseum. I'm sure you're sick of it if you've watched before, but I'm small. I'm a small human, and this measurement is shorter on me than whatever sort of it is on a standard human who is not the size of a child. That's what that is. So that's an easy adjustment to make. It was super easy in the pattern. So it is it's knit in pieces and seamed, and you can see I am not the best at seaming garments. I have not done a ton of them, and I actually really love that this is seamed. Did I particularly love doing the seaming? It's not my favorite, but I'm starting to do it more in garments. It is really smart in a garment like this because the floofy yarn is a silk alpaca, and both silk and alpaca have a lot of drape in them, and you don't want your vest flooping. If it was seamless, it would floop over time and the fit wouldn't be as good. And so there is a lot of wisdom in seaming garments, which is why historically in vintage patterns, a lot of garments are seamed. And so it's really, as I get as I'm doing more and more vintage style knitting, like it's happening more, and that's okay. It's good to expand your skills. I think we've all been a little spoiled by seamless garments, but I don't think they, I mean, they really don't. They don't, not for everything, like they don't hold up as well. So I am, you know, you can see it. It's okay. It's a seam. I give myself a B-. It doesn't bother me when I wear it. It's one of those things that I'll get better with as I practice. So it is seamed, it is knit in pieces, which is actually really fun because the actual knitting on this I did in like no time at all, because you knit the back. So you knit the back, and then you knit each of the sides, and then there's a 3-needle bind off, which you can see, probably, possibly. There's a 3-needle bind off at the shoulders, and it's really, really, really fun to knit, and you get a little dopamine hit every time you finish a piece. It is also a really good use of yarn. It is written for a DK weight and a floofy yarn that is kind of a thicker than a mohair silk. That is so relative. It is actually written for a DK yarn and any kind of floofy yarn you can knit up at a DK gauge. So this is the Republica Unicornia Surrey Silk Floof, which is 328 yards per 50 grams. So it's a little bit, the mohair silk that I stock is like 450. So it's a little bit chunkier. You can also use a fingering weight yarn here. You can, and just knit it at a looser gauge. You can hold, one of the testers held mohair double. Like there's, and you can also, if you don't like fluff, I get it, not everybody likes fluff, you can use a DK weight, another DK weight yarn. So it's really flexible. The pattern is so well written. Noriko writes just really good patterns, and having been on the other side of her process and like, you know, a little behind the scenes and also being a tester, those are some thoroughly tested patterns. So if you've had the experience of like buying a pattern that was garbage, this is not going to be that experience, I promise. I'm fussy. And it was a delight, and she's wonderful to work with, and I was really glad to collaborate with her on this. I've been trying to throw yarn at her for years, and I was really glad she took me up on it. And I have this super cute vest. It's really, really wearable. So it has buttons. These are, I think these are solar color change. I made the buttons. I think they have solar color change dye in them, but they're hot coral. The DK weight yarn is White Russian, and the floofy yarn is Electric Disco Clam. I love it so much. I wanted a like ridiculous, I wanted this combination. I love an oatmeal and a hot coral. I love it. I liked wearing it so much. I'm like, maybe I need one that fits them with like the 70s Tupperware vibe a little bit more. So there might be another one of these in my future is what I'm saying. And it was really nice. Now, I will say this, I knit the smallest size because I put two inches of negative eaves at the bust. And I used, I think, just out a skein of the DK and like half a skein of the Surrey. So like in the yardage requirements, there's generosity, but like it is a good way if you don't, you know, like a whole ass sweater can be an expensive, ridiculous amount of yarn. And so it's a good way to use, especially if you have like a single skein of a floof hanging out in your stash that you don't know what to do with. This is, I think, all except for the largest size uses 2 skeins of the floof, but if you're anything below that, you can get away with 1, which is fun. So I really enjoyed it. I do have some kits available, shameless self-promotion. Sorry, I am a yarn dyer. I do have some kits available. There's a handful left. I'm delighted that people like the kits. I actually had a lot of fun putting them together, and I made bespoke buttons. So each kit, there's kits for all the sizes, and there's a range. So you can pick your bust measurement and whatever you want, and then get a yarn kit. So I did a full range of sizes on that, and the buttons are specially made to match those combinations, and I had a lot of fun. So that is the Linden Button Up. I'm also linking the pattern below. Seriously, like, don't feel like you have to buy my yarn. If you want to buy my yarn, it's there. But I love a flexible pattern that like is a good use of what you have. One of the testers did a rainbow stripe version, and oh my gosh, can you imagine how cute it would be with like rainbow garter stripes and like a gray floof. I mean, there's so many options. So that is the Linden Button Up, and it's actually, I really love it. We have like, Atlanta has, I mean, I guess everywhere does, but like those transitional seasons with temperature, like I cannot dress for between like, I have a hard time dressing between like 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit because I am always freezing. And so a t-shirt and when it's 65 degrees Fahrenheit, like I'm chilly. I know, I'm Southern. So that's a whole thing. And so I wore this. This is like it's a great layer. I love a vest. I love a vest. And so we went to the Botanic Gardens last Sunday, and I wore it with a short sleeve shirt, and I was perfectly comfortable. So that's the Linden Button Up. So cute. I think I am gonna need a fall one. I have a spring one, I'm gonna need a fall one. So my next finished object, I don't even know how I'm gonna show this. I think I'm just gonna stand back and not talk because the microphone is like close here and I don't wanna sound like I'm in a tunnel. So I finished my very first quilt and I got squeaky because I was so excited about finishing my first quilt. So, noises. Here, hold on. We gotta make sure it's like, I mean, there's not really like a right side up, but. Okay. Is this close? Yay. So it is I did not use a pattern. I started this maybe like early February. And I've wanted to make a quilt for a long time because I have a lot of fabric scraps kicking around because I sew garments as a hobby and also I make project bags. And I had designed the project bags to use fabric as efficiently as possible. However, because I make this is probably more information than you need. Because I make the handles out of the exterior fabrics, I have like a 6-inch strip left over on the interior fabrics. Now, like, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but like, I've also been doing this for 6 years. And so over time, those have built up and I often send them out to friends who are quilters, but like between the garments are the worst, frankly. But between the garment fabric and the bag fabric, like the scrap situation is a lot. Like I knew I wasn't gonna have to buy any kind of fabric for this except for the backing, which I could have pieced the backing, but I wasn't gonna do that on my first one. So I made a whole mess of half square triangles, which was very fun. And so I did a pinwheel. Then I did my quilt top, which didn't take that long. Also, I just need to point this out just in case, like, this is not visible on Instagram, but if you're watching here, you get the like insider stuff. I forgot, I had this in the wash and I was like, oh shit. There's ice-dyed fabric in here, and ice-dyed fabric, even when I wash it out, like, it's just, things happen. So we have some bleeding. I know, I should have used a color catcher. I pre-wash all my fabric for everything anyway, and so I was like, it's gonna be fine. And then I was like, oh, maybe it's not gonna be fine. And you know what? It wasn't fine, but then it was also totally fine. I'm not worried about it. But I do have some Synthropol, which is that what it is? Which is like the nasty, fabulous soap that you use for tie-dyeing in my cart at Dharma Trading Company, because we will be, if I do more ice-dyed fabrics and put them in quilts, I will be washing them with the nasty stuff. So it literally is just scrap fabric. And what I love about this, I mean, I love a lot of things. Like one, it is just like a ridiculous riot of color, and it's all of my favorite colors. And even though it's a lot going on, I think they all work together because I like all colors. And so it's just, the tones are exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to feel like a grandma quilt. I have a quilt that a great grandmother made that is one of my favorite things ever. And it is, I think it's half square triangles and like it's pinwheels, except when she ran out of enough of the fabric. So it's like half pinwheels. I love that thing. And I wanted it to have that same vibe. And also like, I wanted to use up scraps. That's what I wanted to do. And what I love about this is like, all have some kind of memory attached to them. Like I have a blouse in this, I have a blouse in this, I have like, so even the bag fabrics, like there's one here, this is a circa 2015 cotton and steel Sarah Watts with the little yarn balls. God, I loved that one. I love it. And so like I like bought a fat quarter of this when I was first learning how to sew and like figuring it out. And it's just, there's just like a lot of little sewing memories in here. And I really love that. This otter fabric, this Robert Kaufman otter fabric is like, it's been out of print for a long time. It's like one of my favorites. Look, they're holding hands. So, I had so much fun figuring that out and just kind of going through my stash. I still have like, oh my gosh, I have so many fabric scraps. So unless I get like real into like fancy people quilting, which I don't think I will, I'm probably good. I did have to order backing fabric. So this is a, I think Riley Blake does the Liberty of London quilting cottons. So Liberty, I guess, like licenses their images to people, and by people I mean companies. So I think it's Riley Blake, which is a quilting cotton company. And so they like lease their images and they get to have them, and they're not $40 a yard, because the Liberty Tana Lawn, which is like this that I use in garments when I'm feeling extra super fancy, is $40 a yard. Now you don't want a $40 a yard quilt backing, because you do not. So this is one of the wide backs. So it's 100. Standard width of quilting cotton is like between 40. It's like 42 and 45. I don't think I've ever really seen a 45. 40. It's usually like 42. And so like my quilt is 54 inches. So I would have had to piece it. And so I just ordered the wide back, which look, if I've spent all this time piecing the front of a quilt, at this point in my life, I'm just not really into doing the back. And I picked it because it has big flour sack fabric vibes, which I love. And that was kind of a callback to my heirloom quilt. And it's ridiculous and I love it. The binding is, I think, just a Kona cotton. It's what I had it's something I had in stash. And after doing stuff where I had to do like miles of bias binding, cutting quilt binding, I'm like, oh, I just take the rotary cutter and I just go through and we're good to go. It was a lot. Like if you are not a quilter and someone has made you a quilt, they love you so much, because it is I'm a pretty experienced sewist. I sew a lot. And I was so glad that I had that base of knowledge, and like I'm not afraid of my sewing machine, right? Like we're good. But the time it took, and I'm used to garments, which, you don't actually sew that much on a garment. If you think about it, like a pair of pants, it's like 2 side seams, they're like inseam, and a waistband. Like that's a pair of pants. Like I can make a pair of pants. Just like I don't spend that much time sewing. There is like, not even counting the piecing, but just the actual like quilting of this took hours. I have to like clean and oil my machine because it's been sewing for like 7 hours straight. So that is a big thing, which I knew, but you don't really know till you're in it. And there were some exciting moments. There were some frustrating moments. I opted to press my seams open because that's what you do in garment sewing. And also because like these joins are bulky. Like there's a lot of fabric coming together here. And if you just press them to one side, and it can get, like my like beefy machine struggled with some of these joints anyway. And so I pressed them open and I was like, okay, I had such a hard time deciding what actual quilting to do. Cause everything is like, whatever, it's gonna be perfect, just do it, it's fine. I am not a just whatever. Like that is not how I roll. And I was really proud of the top and I didn't want to mess it up. So I dithered and freaked myself out and dithered some more and freaked out some more. And finally I was like, okay, I'm going to do stitch in the ditch. And I knew it wasn't going to be perfect because like stitch in the ditch is where you sew between the seams. You use it a lot. Like in garment sewing, I feel like you use it at waistbands often. And like ideally you get right in between the seams and then like the fabric kind of hides that stitching, which frankly only happens like 30% of the time, but that's kind of the idea. And I pressed my seams open, and except I hadn't on the diagonal, so this is gonna be important later. So I'd press my seams open and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stitch in the ditch because I don't wanna like ruin the lines of this quilt. So I do that. I spend like, 4 hours doing that, all the diagonal lines, and I stitched in the ditch between each of the pinwheel blocks. So I did that. Hours. And I like get on the internet and everything is like, don't stitch in the ditch, your quilt's going to fall apart if you press your seams open. Because you're technically like stitching over, not over any fabric, you're stitching between, like over stitches, and it can pull. Now, okay, if you're great at it, which I'm not, and the thing is about stitching in the ditch is you're never really, you're not that, not no one, but I am not that good at it. And so there's no way that I was just catching, like I was catching fabric. And I will show you what I'm talking about because I'm probably not making any sense. Let's see if I can find a good one. I did wash it, which actually helped too. So there's also that. Yeah, everyone who's like, wash your quilt, everything will be fine. That is correct. So you can see, I don't know if you all can see, there's like a little bit. So this oh, Jesus. I don't know, guys. I don't know if y'all can see. There's like a little bit, okay, you really can't see. Take my word for it. So this I stitched in the ditch here, and there's like a little bit, I wandered off to one side. So that is a thing that happened. And I was like, oh, well, I've just done this whole quilt. What am I going to do? And of course it was like 10 o'clock at night. So I thought about it, and I'd forgotten that I hadn't pressed open the diagonal seams. So those are totally fine to stitch in the ditch because like the seam allowance is pressed over to one side. So like when you stitch in the ditch, you're catching something. You're not just catching stitches. I hope I am making something resembling sense. If not, I am so sorry. So I panicked a little bit and I was like, fine, I'm just going to leave it. It's going to be fine. It's my first quilt. If it falls apart, I'll mend it. And then I was like, no, that is not how I roll. So what I ended up doing, which I love the look of, is I ended up going and doing a line of stitching, I think like, if I had to say, this is it's between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch. It was like with the presser foot, so 1/4 of an inch on either side of all of the horizontal and all of the vertical seams. And I love how it looks. Like it's the exact, and with something this geometric, I'm not going to be into free motion quilting. I can pretty much guarantee that I am way too uptight for that. So I ended up loving how it looked. It is enough quilting for this quilt. Like I'm not worried about anything falling apart. And so you can't see the diagonal lines unless you get real close. And the horizontal just have this, it's like a nice little checkerboard pattern. I don't know if you can see on the back. Another reason I chose this super printed back is if my machine quilting was garbage, I didn't want it to show. But I'm really pleased with it. I did hand bind the quilt. Not the quilt. Yeah, I mean I did. Friends, my blood sugar, I am hungry, so if this is less coherent than usual, we will all know why. So I did hand sew down the binding, which I love doing. It's the same stitch that I use when I hem everything, and it took me a little bit. Took me a lot longer because one of our cats decided that she was going to sit on it the whole time, and she is a chonk, and I could not I couldn't in good conscience move her, but also I literally couldn't move her. So it took me a little bit longer, but it's relaxing. I find it. I like doing that. So that is my first quilt, and I think I will definitely make another quilt. Since my mama doesn't watch this, I can say I think they're moving into a new house soon-ish, and I think she's going to get a housewarming quilt, and she will love it. She definitely, one of my friends calls them maternal hint mans, as in hint demands, which is something Southern mothers just excel in. And I showed her a picture, and she texts me back, she's like, you think you'll make another one? So yes, I will be making another one for her, but I haven't decided what I want to do. For me, I don't want to go the whole like fancy pattern pre-cuts route because that's like, I just want to be a stubborn grandma about it. I don't see me getting to where like I piece a bunch of tops and then pay someone else to long arm quilt them unless I'm doing a giant bed quilt, in which case absolutely. Oh, I wanted to talk about that too. So actually physically wrestling even a throw size quilt through a domestic machine, even a great one, and I'll talk about my sewing machine in a second, even a great one is like kind of a thing. I'm in pretty good shape because I like sling around yarn for a living. My triceps are killing me. So it's just one of those fiber arts things that everyone, because it's traditionally been done by lady type people, everyone acts like it's just something for like weak little grandma ladies to do, and it's not actually difficult in any sense of the word, including physically, and that is bullshit. So just add this to the list of things of undervalued lady type person work. Anyway, feminist, I was gonna say feminist rant over, but like, no, it's not. I've been on a feminist rant since I was like 9 years old. It's not over. So definitely would make another one. It's a time commitment, but it was enjoyable. And I got a couple more tools to make my life easier. I mean, I'm set up because I bag sew. And so like I have tons of cutting mats. I have I had a rotary cutter, like I have rulers, but there's just a couple of things. So I bought a new rotary cutter, which, not sponsored. This is like, it is the Quilter Select, and I should have bought one years ago. It weighs a ton. It's super sharp. I mean, a new blade is going to be sharp anyway. So I guess the sharpness isn't really the thing, but the extra bit of weight is so nice, because it means you have to press down. You don't have to press down as hard. So it's easier on your cutting mat. It's easier on your body. And when I cut fabric for project bags, like, I should have done this years ago. I think it was like $45, which was an absolutely worthwhile investment. So that's very fun. I got the rulers that help you trim half square triangles. That really helped. And on the recommendation from Julia of Knitterly Things, I got a rotating cutting mat, which, whew, that's fantastic too. So just a couple of like little tools to make my life easier, but I did not have to go all in. My sewing machine, I have a Juki 2010Q, and it is designed for home quilters. And it is a straight stitch only. I cannot recommend this machine enough if you sew a lot. If you garment sew, like I bought it and I was a little afraid of it because it is all mechanical. You have to oil it, but you drop the little oil in. It's got a side loading bobbin, and it is fantastic. It is so, those computerized machines, and I'm not a fancy person, but the premium you pay for computerized machines is a lot. And then they have like a lot of feelings because they are computerized. And so my Juki was like, maybe I got it on special, and it came with a bunch of stuff. I don't think it was more than like $700 or $800. And those computerized machines are like thousands. So it is a really good bargain. It is a workhorse. You can, I mean, it's what I sew all the bags on for REPUBLICA UNICORNIA. So it is, it gets a lot of use. It does one thing, it does it well, it behaves itself. And it has extra distance between the needle plate and the throat of the machine. So when you're like wrestling a quilt through, you have more space. And that part was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. So that was good. It's just, it takes a lot of strength, and especially since I don't have like a drop-in. I mean, I kind of want an industrial machine now, but so you're kind of at this like weird angle, and so there's like a lot of this going on. And anyway, we made it work. I'd do it again. So that's a lot about quilting. I have been whining about it on Instagram for a month. I'm sure everyone's like, just make the damn quilt. And I did. So we're going to talk about knitting. I have quite a few whips because I haven't been garment sewing. So I have been doing knitting things. So new-ish cast on. I haven't made a shawl. I used to, like, when I was a new knitter, I made, or like, yeah, a new knitter. I made a ton of shawls, and then I started getting really into garment sewing, and I don't make them a ton. I love a shawl because you don't have to worry about gauge as much, like fit's not a thing. And like, there are so many good ones out there, and they're usually a really nice use of hand-dyed yarn. And I love a Stephen West shawl, and I haven't made a Stephen West shawl. The last one I made was maybe like 2021. It's been years. So he released this pattern, and I lost my mind and decided I needed one. So this is the Fiberfest shawl, and it is these like, it's like stripes and these like teeny weeny little baubles, which are not as annoying to work as bigger baubles. And there's some brioche because we love a brioche, and it's just so enjoyable to work. I am having, like, it's one of those, it's easily memorizable, and I love this about Stephen West patterns is they're very effective. And which means that like they're not boring. It's not just like garter stitch, but they just use stitches they use relatively simple stitches really well. They use yarn really well. Like, they're just so good. And I am really enjoying this. I don't know if I'll wear it because I don't really wear shawls, but it was exactly what I wanted to play with. And none of this is showing up great on camera. We'll see how it looks in the final thing. So I am using all of my yarn in BFL figuring weight. I think it's all BFL sock, but it could be some of the pure BFL. So this green is Bonnie May, and it's got speckles. It's like a sagey green and speckly. The blue, which the baubles are in, is Revolution in the Air. This one, which is never going to show up on camera, this is Medusa, and I freaking love this colorway. There's a handful of colorways that no one loves as much as me, and I think this is on the list. It is like a true red coral. Like if you think about not like what color coral is in nail polish and lipstick, but like actual coral, it's this color, and which is why it's got its name. So it's got like a little bit of pink in it. It's got some orange in it. Like it's just I love this. I have a linen dress this color that I really love because it's like not orange, it's not pink, and it's not red. Love it. And the yellow is, with Medusa on it, is Kernel Mustard. So I am really enjoying this. It's also a nice little break for I have tendonitis, or as we call it in our house, knitter's elbow. And working with those like really toothy non-superwash yarns at a tight gauge, especially doing color work, can make everything flare up. So this is kind of a nice break. So very enjoyable. Oh, the pattern is actually written for 3 colors. I did 4. It's really easy to sub out. It's one of those also, this is another reason I really like it. It's one of those that is good for those like little orphan skeins of like beautiful things that you buy that you don't know what you're gonna do with. It's a good use of that. Variegated yarn would look totally fine in this because everything's broken up. So pooling isn't like as big of an issue. So it just, I just really extra love Stephen West patterns because they are such a good use of hand-dyed yarn. Whenever I'm feeling a little stuck or like a little bored or just like not inspired by my own, frankly, by my own yarn, like it makes me remember why hand-dyed yarns are a thing that people should and, can buy. Because sometimes they can, hand-dyed yarns can be a little, I say this as a yarn dyer, hand-dyed yarns can be frustrating. If you're like, you fall in love with something in a skein and you knit in a sweater and it pools weird and you get mad about it, we've all been there. But his patterns are just a reminder of kind of how wonderful hand dyes are, so we love that. Speaking of, I'm gonna scoot stuff over. I'm back. Speaking of itchy yarn at tight gauges, I have made a teeny bit of progress on my Wartime Farm vest, I think. I've set it aside because we're in that point where like there's no point in me rushing to finish this because I won't be able to handle wool on my body until November, but it is really lovely. So I'm kind of just taking it easy on this one. I've prioritized some other projects, but so it'll linger for a little bit, and then when I start kind of getting into the fall mood, I'll finish it up. So it is really, and it has, I think this is one of the things that spurred me to make a quilt because the star pattern looks like a quilt block. So pretty. I love it. And we love Wartime Farm. Thank you to everybody who has shared my absolute obsession with the BBC Historical Farm series, the best television besides the 1995 Pride and Prejudice ever made. So that's Wartime Farm. It's doing its thing. And I did cast on a new pair of socks. So I dyed a new colorway, and I don't have a skein because people bought it. Thank you. Maybe you can see it. This is Evening on the Ground. It is named for an Iron and Wine song. And it is also inspired by one of my favorite pottery glazes, because I will never stop dyeing yarn about my pottery collection. So it's got like dusty rose and sage and blue and it's a really, really lovely, it's got some lavender in it. It's like a lovely dusty colorway. So I'm doing a modified version of the Unicorns and Peacocks socks by Alex of Left Sock Best Sock. The pattern is one color, half brioche. I'm doing 2 colors because I wanted to squeeze in more yarn. So the main color, okay. So the main color is Evening on the Ground, and the contrast color is This Ain't No Disco, which is just, it's not showing up on camera. The light's weird today, sorry. It is like a dusty, smoky purple, but it has little berry pops in it that you can't see on camera, but trust me, they're there because I put them there. So that is just kind of doing its thing. I like to, when I dye a new colorway, this is why I end up with so many sock whips and in October have to finish a bunch of socks, it's a good way for me to see how stuff's gonna look. And you can see like this one, I mean, because of how I'm doing it, it will pool in a sock. And let's just talk about pooling. Why not? So I get questions sometimes about like, will this pool? So pooling, if you're not familiar, is what happens when like you're knitting in yarn and you're knitting and you get like weird designs and flashes of color and blobs and things like that. And a lot of people buy skeins of yarn and colorways that they like in the skein, and then they like knit it up in a stockinette sweater, and they don't like how that happens. Some types of yarn pool more than others. A yarn like this that is highly variegated and like the dye is applied in chunks, because that's how I put it on there. The dye is applied in chunks. This is not like, if you don't like pooling, this is probably not going to be your sweater yarn. That's it. But it does great things in socks. So I love, the reason I dye so many of these kind of like variegated chunky yarns with strips is they micro stripe in socks, and it looks really fun, and I like that. But that doesn't mean that I or anyone else is bad at dyeing yarn because a yarn pools. It's like literally just mathematics, and I can't say, you know, based on, because gauge varies, right? So if you're like knitting something in a gauge, it might pool. A tight gauge, it may or may not pool. I mean, there's so many variables. I tend to avoid highly variegated yarns in garments. That's just me. It's just like a personal thing, but some people really love it. And there's also in like planned pooling projects, so you can actually work with it. So that is my 2 cents on that. I'm a little fussier. I like my garments to be in tonals. So that's why I dye so many tonals, because I knit a lot of garments. But I do also really love those fun yarns. And like a yarn that is randomly, and I dye a lot of these too, yarns that are randomly like speckled all over, you can get away with in garments because you're not gonna have like those chunks of color. Think of the yarns that are dyed with chunks of color more like self-striping yarn when you're planning what you want to do with it. It's not self-striping yarn because I don't do that. Hats off to everybody who does, and I will keep buying it. But it's like that same kind of idea where you're figuring out color changes based on dye placement. So, you know, just knitting things. Okay, I already talked about that. Okay, this one, is this the last one? Yes, this is my last one. Okay, I'm really excited about this one. So I am having a very intense moment with ultramarine blue, like obsessed. This happens with me with color sometimes. Just like totally obsessed with ultramarine blue, which is interesting because I don't even know that like historically it's been a color that I've worn, but I cannot get enough of it. I mean, I painted my nails about it. Like there's just something about this color that right now it's just where it's at. So I cast on and it's not gonna be that exciting, but we're gonna talk about the yarn because the yarn is exciting. I cast on the Rose Street Cardigan by Squid School of Vintage Knitting. just a pattern MVP. I love this cardigan. It's a 1940s style cardigan, obviously very much my jam. And it has puff sleeves, also very much my jam. And the sleeves there's like ribbing at the top of the sleeves, which is really cute. And it has lace sleeves. And I knew I wanted an ultramarine blue cardigan. Like the minute I saw it, I was like, oh, I want an ultramarine blue cardigan. So this is not showing up. This is showing up a little more like on the navy end. It is like a glowy, like it is an ultramarine. It is a glowy blue. I love it. This is bigger on the inside. Oh yeah. This colorway is bigger on the inside. I've dyed bigger on the inside for a long time, like a long time. And I kind of, you know, I don't know, just like sometimes I move on from colors and I don't think about them. It's a little bit of a diva, but my current dye setup is really good with stuff like this because I can just let it cook for, 6 hours and then it behaves itself. So here it is in the skein. Yeah, this is not capturing the like glowing in it. It is, I love this colorway. I am obsessed with it. And this yarn. I talked about this yarn. I actually did a little mini launch of this yarn. And I never quite know when I'm picking new bases, like if anyone's gonna love them. And so I kind of err on the side of caution. And there was some interest and I was like, okay, well, I'll just hold off and order more. Oh no, I am knitting with this. I am ordering a lot of this. I don't know if anybody's gonna buy it, but I am so excited. So this is the Domestic Merino 3-ply. And it is entirely grown, milled, processed, spun. It's spun at a mill in North Carolina. And it's marine. I think it's like a merino rambouillet, and it's from a ranch that can trace it, and there's like a whole thing. Its name was Colin. And some of that, who knows? But oh my gosh, it is really nice. I take back every mean thing I've ever said about merino over the years, which is frankly a lot. It is such a nice yarn. I'm gonna show you my swatch. So this is knitted a fairly tight gauge. I think it's 25 stitches to 4 inches, I think. I'm on a US size 2. So it's amazing. It is so soft. It has a little bit of drape to it. It is so nice to work with. And like, it's like the opposite of splitty. Like, I think it might be spun really tightly. I think that's probably what it is. And it is just so pleasant to work with, which is great because let me tell you, knitting a whole cardigan flat, yuck, on size 2 needles, like, it better be fun. And I'm really enjoying it. It is, we love a Sydney pattern, and I'm so excited to have the thing. I am thinking about spring wardrobe plans, and I thought I was gonna go into I was gonna lean into the 20s, but man, you know, I am just leaning into like French Riviera with Poirot, which is not like a new thing for me, but just deeply. And so I don't know if you picked up on it, but these like primary colors that are really saturated are very, very like 1930s, and I am loving them. So I think that's probably kind of where I'm going with that. So I did want to show y'all while I have you real quick. I bought the buttons for this already. So I ordered vintage buttons and they perfectly match my nail polish. So just putting that out there. You can see they're iridescent. They're vintage. I actually have, do I have a cardigan with these buttons? I own these buttons already, and I think I used them in something, but I can't remember what. Oh, they're on my my cloud busting cardigan. That's the one. And they're like the perfect blue. They have some iridescence in them. So I think they're gonna look, I dropped a needle. They're gonna look absolutely gorgeous on this sweater. So this pattern has a built-in, I don't know if you can see it, it's a little hard because it's dark, has a built-in button band. So that's kind of fun, so you don't have to pick up stitches afterwards. So yeah, very fun. Oh, and I have it ribbon to put over on the button side like I always do. So it'll be very cute and matchy-matchy. And I ordered, which I don't have to show, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway. I ordered a new blouse pattern from Decades of Style. Now here's my disclaimer of Decades of Style. I love their patterns. They fill that niche of modern written vintage style sewing patterns. Their size inclusivity is garbage. It is, I think they're only sized up to like a 45-inch bust, which is absolute bananas. So I'm not endorsing that, like, and they kind of double down on it. I'm not endorsing that, but like, also, it's not like I'm buying just like a, you know, basic pattern you can buy anywhere. So I know it sucks, but there are other companies that do stuff that is more size inclusive. None of the, and possibly because it's, I'm not making excuses, but possibly because it's so specialized that if you're taking a vintage pattern that only has one size and you're redoing everything, like that gives you, that's a little bit more limited. Again, not an excuse. Everybody deserves to dress like they're a land girl, like literally everybody, but it is what it is. So I ordered a blouse pattern from there. It is the Girl Friday blouse, and I'm so mad. I don't like the line drawing. The line drawing looks like very extra, and I was just like on the site and I clicked through and I was like, oh my gosh, I need this blouse. So I think I'm going to make that blouse. I did order a little bit of fabric. I am still in my fabric rationing. The only fabric I've bought this year is my quilt backing, and I'm a little mad because Steven made me count that as in my coupon total. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I am putting myself on the 1941, I think it's 41, UK system of clothing coupons, which also includes fabric and yarn, and it is helping me plan my life. It actually has been really, like, I thought I was going to be mad about it. I'm not mad about it. I definitely did order a couple more cuts of fabric last week. So, but it's March and I've only used like 2 coupons, not counting what I just ordered. So we'll see. It's an experiment. So I got a fabric to make the smooth sailing blouse with a Peter Pan collar, which is, I did one, I think in January, and I love it. And it is as close as I could find, speaking of the Historic Farm series, it is as close as I could find to the print that Ruth's blouse is in Wartime Farm. So it has like little blue flower, it's cream colored lawn, it's nice, with, it's got like little flowers on it. So I'm gonna do a Peter Pan color blouse with that. I'm going to do the Girl Friday blouse in probably an ivory cotton lawn. Honestly, the most worn thing in my wardrobe. I made a smooth sailing blouse, my first one. I made it in like not even fancy. I think it might be the Robert Kaufman ivory lawn. I made it in that. It's not like super fancy or anything, and I wear it all the time. So I'm gonna make that blouse in the same fabric. And I think I have the Decades of Style Arches skirt, which is a 1940s skirt that is very cute. So I have that to try. That's gonna be a new one. The good thing is on skirts, there's not as much fitting. I do not have the mental capacity or the desire to do a lot of like fancy fitting right now. Like I am too tired for that. So I figured if I was going to do new patterns, I mean, the blouse will be one thing, but the fit is such that I don't think it's going to be, I should not say that out loud. I hope it is not going to be too much. And the skirt won't require much fitting because those measurements are on me tend to match more with patterns than my bodice measurements. So I'm gonna do that, and I got a very fun, it's called Blood Orange. The colorway was Blood Orange, it's a linen, and it's a dead stock, which I love buying dead stock. And it is like one of those, it's yarn dyed, so it'll look orange in some lights and red in others because the threads are different. So one way they're orange and one way they're red. See, like primary colors, like everything, and I have a pair of ultramarine blue linen smooth sailing trousers cut. Like everything, it's like these like super saturated, but not like pure primary. So like that, like Medusa, the colorway is like that coral, but it's like really saturated. Anyway, I am loving that. So we have a trip planned, our first vacation in many years, planned in May. And I thought I was going to do 20s, but I'm looking at those patterns and like my brain is like, oh no. So I think I might kind of go like lean into my 1930s, 1940s stuff. So hopefully I'll have a cardigan, I'll have some new trousers, and like obviously that works with all of my existing clothes because we're going to Chicago, and Chicago in May can be hot or it can be really not hot. So that's kind of I think where I'm going. But I'm trying a little bit because I noticed this about myself. Is that I get really excited about something. I get excited about a pattern, I get excited about a plan, and I like get all the stuff for it. And like at the end of the day, like I still have a job. Like I have a flexible job, but it's still a job. And spring is when stuff starts getting really busy. And so I will not get to things. And so I'll have like all of these big plans. And so I tried to make a list of things that were like actually doable in the time that I have. So it's a skirt, 2 pairs of trousers, but those I can sew. Those are fast because I've made them so many times. And despite the fact that they're the best pants ever, they are also really straightforward to make. So that's fun. So I have a skirt, 2 pairs of trousers, a new blouse, and a blouse I've made a gazillion times. So that feels like for spring sewing, that feels doable. And a cardigan. And the cardigan, this is a great thing about vintage stuff, is it is short. So like my distance from like where I want the cardigan to hit to my underarm is like between, I think it's like 10 inches max. And so those go a little bit faster. So I'm hoping to have all that done. So that's it. I'm going to go eat lunch. You can find me, I didn't even talk about this. I don't know what I'm doing. You can find me on Instagram at Republica_Unicornia_yarns or Republica_Unicornia_can_do_it. Why did I pick, I mean, I know why I picked the longest business name ever, but like also why did I pick the longest business name ever? I will link that so you don't have to like actually listen to this. So the Republica Unicornia Can Do It is more of my like casual, I'm making stuff account. The other one is business, but also I'm not a overly like businessy person. So it's all kind of just fun chaos and happy things. So that's where you can find me. I will link the website. I will link patterns, like everything, show notes. Everything will be in show notes. And if I miss something, just ask. So I hope you are making ridiculously fun things and you are excited about your plans and what you're working on and that you are learning new things and that you are being brave in your making, because sometimes doing new things is scary and you have a lot of anxiety about it. And you're like, I'm going to fail at this. Like, just do the thing. Do the thing. Okay. Take care. And I'll see you next time. Bye.